The worst people often look like they're winning, but life doesn't settle debts in public. It collects in silence. Stoics don't chase revenge. They observe. Because while you're healing in peace, karma is already working, and it never misses. You may think they got away with it. The lies, the betrayal, the manipulation, they walked away like nothing happened. But something did, and now, life is speaking to them in the only language karma knows, whispers. No one else hears, but they feel every single day. In this video, you'll learn 5 silent signs that someone is already receiving the consequences of how they treated you. Not in front of a crowd, not in court, but in their own life, in their own mind, and in the quiet moments no one else sees. This is not about revenge. This is about truth. And truth has a voice louder than any scream. It's called silence. Nothing is heavier than pretending to be okay when you're not. But karma doesn't care about appearances. It works through what people feel when no one's watching. The first sign that karma is quietly at work is when they start acting like they've never been better. The person who ghosted you, the one who betrayed your trust, who tore you down, walked away, and made it seem like you were the problem. Now, suddenly, they're glowing. They post new photos every day, laughing in places you two never went, smiling with people who weren't even around when they had you. And if you're not careful, you might actually believe it. You might scroll through their highlight reel and think, wow, maybe they're really happy without me. But here's the truth. No filter can hide. Real happiness doesn't need to be proven. Fake happiness does. You've seen this before. They go silent for a few days after the fallout. Then suddenly, boom, photos, stories, inspirational quotes, gym selfies, a fake glow-up campaign. One moment, they were destroying something real. The next, they're hashtagging healing with someone new, like guilt never touched them. But look again. The smile too wide, the eyes distant, the energy desperate. Because happiness isn't loud, but insecurity always is. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." And Marcus Aurelius reminded us, the best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. That's why a Stoic doesn't argue, doesn't clap back, and certainly doesn't stalk their story for closure. They observe. Because true peace doesn't perform, it just is. And the louder someone tries to prove they've moved on, the more likely they haven't. Karma doesn't need to announce itself. It shows up quietly every night when they go to bed and realize the person they became is the exact reason they lost someone who never wanted to see them hurt. And no number of posts, no pretend joy, no new partner can drown out the sound of a conscience that knows, I messed up something real. Let them smile for the camera, because you know the truth. The most exhausting lie is faking peace. Karma doesn't always strike like lightning. Sometimes it starts with a subtle erosion, the slow removal of things they thought would never leave. The second sign that someone is silently receiving their karma is when life begins taking back the very things they once held carelessly in their hands. People think karma shows up in dramatic ways. A car crash, a heartbreak, a betrayal. But karma is far more precise than that. It doesn't scream. It doesn't throw tantrums. It simply begins to subtract. At first, it's so quiet, they don't even notice. They lose small things. A friend who stops responding, a colleague who stops trusting them, an opportunity that slips through their fingers without explanation. But they shrug it off. They think it's just life, just bad luck, just coincidence, until the pattern continues, and continues, and continues. And eventually, they realize they're standing in the ruins of everything they once mocked, minimized, or ignored. Maybe they used to say you were too emotional, that you cared too much, that you overreacted, when really you were the only one reacting with heart. You tried. You stayed up late texting them through their breakdowns. You forgave them when they forgot your worth. You believed in them when they didn't even believe in themselves. And how did they repay you? They rolled their eyes. They joked that you were clingy, needy, too soft for this world. They thought your presence was a given, not a gift. So eventually, you stopped offering. You stopped fighting for someone who never showed up for you. And quietly, you walked away. At first, they felt free, untouched, unbothered. But then the silence started to echo. The messages slowed down. The circle grew smaller. The people they trusted turned out to be exactly like them, selfish, dismissive, transactional. And suddenly, all the options they thought they had, gone. The support they used to receive without asking, missing. The comfort of being deeply understood by someone who actually cared, irreplaceable, because no one can replicate the space you used to hold for them, especially not someone new who only knows the version of them that's still pretending to be healed. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good person should be. Be one." And what karma does is strip away everything that doesn't align with the truth. You see, when someone mistreats a good person, they're not just betraying you, they're betraying the version of themselves that had access to peace, patience, forgiveness, and depth. Karma doesn't punish them by making them suffer in obvious ways. It punishes them by showing them exactly what they chose to lose and then makes them live without it. Every room feels colder. Every new relationship feels thinner. Every win feels emptier. Because deep down, they know they had something real. And they let it slip through their fingers. Let them lose. Let them learn. Let them look around and realize that none of what surrounds them now feels as safe, as sincere, or as sacred as what they once had with you. Because karma doesn't just take away things, it takes away the version of themselves they were when they still had your love. And no matter how much they try to recreate it, they'll never find that same version of peace again. When someone talks in circles, but you're still at the center of every sentence, karma is already whispering in their mind. The third sign someone is silently receiving their karma is when you still live in their thoughts, even when they pretend you don't. They'll never say your name. Not directly, not publicly, but listen closely. They post vague quotes on social media, cryptic captions about betrayal, loyalty, fake people, or healing from the past. They drop hints in conversations like, "Some people will never understand what they lost," or "Not everyone deserves my energy anymore." At first glance, you might think it's just general talk, but you know better, because you know their language, you know their patterns, you know their guilt. You've been there, scrolling through your feed. Suddenly you see a post that feels like a bullet wrapped in poetry. They didn't tag you. They didn't mention your name. But every word screams your presence without ever saying it. It's like they're trying to get your attention without looking like they want your attention. That's not power. That's not healing. That's a conscience trying to scream through the cracks of a collapsed ego. And maybe their friends don't even notice. Maybe no one else around them even picks up on it. But you do, because you once loved them deeply enough to read their silences. And now, those same silences are shouting back at them. Because karma doesn't always punish with events. Sometimes it punishes with obsession, with thoughts they can't control, with regrets they can't swallow, with memories they didn't think would last, but now can't escape. A Stoic does not seek revenge. A Stoic does not post back. A Stoic does not reply with a subtle quote of their own. Because to reply is to validate, but to stay silent is to reclaim power. Epictetus said, "If someone speaks ill of you, live in such a way that no one will believe it." So when they talk around you, behind you, about you, don't respond. Don't justify. Don't clarify. Let them carry your name around in silence. Because the more they speak in circles, the more it reveals the truth. You left, but they never did. Let them talk. Let them drop quotes, half-truths, and twisted stories. Let them heal loudly to cover the fact that they're not healing at all. You don't need to be in their life to live in their mind. That's karma. And the mind is the loudest prison of all, especially when the person you wronged won't even look back. Stay silent, because silence, once again, says everything. When you betray someone good, you don't just lose them, you lose the ability to trust anyone who reminds you of them, including yourself. The fourth sign that someone is silently receiving their karma is when they stop believing in other people and slowly, they stop believing in themselves. At first, it looks like self-protection. They keep their circle small. They stop opening up. They become selective with their energy. They say things like, "I just don't trust people anymore." Everyone's fake these days. But underneath that tough exterior isn't strength. It's not boundaries. It's not healing. It's fear. The kind of fear that grows in the shadow of guilt. You've seen it happen. They used to be open. They used to laugh freely, trust easily, speak carelessly. But after what they did to you or to others, something shifted, not on the surface, but inside, quietly, slowly. Now, they question everyone's intentions. They assume betrayal before trust. They scan every word, every action, every silence, looking for signs that someone might do to them what they once did to you. Why? Because deep down, they know what they're capable of. And when you know the harm you once inflicted on someone who didn't deserve it, you start to believe that everyone else has the same potential for destruction. This is karma's most intimate punishment, self-suspicion. It isolates not by force, but by internal erosion. The voice that once said, "I'm in control," is now whispering, "Maybe I'm the problem." And that thought is terrifying, because once you doubt yourself, peace becomes impossible, no matter how quiet the room is. Seneca once wrote, "He who does wrong rarely trusts anyone else, because he knows what he is capable of." The Stoics understood this well. They taught that your inner peace is directly linked to your conscience. If your actions betray your values, you won't just lose others, you'll lose yourself. That's what karma does. It doesn't always show up in consequences you can see. Sometimes, it shows up as an invisible fracture in your inner world, a restlessness you can't explain, a tightness in your chest when things feel too good, a voice that says you don't deserve this, even when you finally have something real. Let them sit in that silence. Let them question everyone's motives. Let them fear the same shadow they once cast on others. Because karma doesn't just haunt people with memories, it robs them of peace with paranoia. And the worst prison isn't behind bars. It's the one where your conscience becomes the guard. So if they can't trust anymore, don't feel bad. Don't try to fix them. Don't come back just to prove that not everyone is the same. That's not your job. Your role was never to be the redeemer of someone who chose destruction. You gave them truth. They gave you betrayal. Now karma is giving them exactly what they earned, not chaos, not drama, but the quiet collapse of self-trust. Karma doesn't yell. It introduces you to yourself. The fifth and most undeniable sign that someone is silently receiving their karma is when life sends them someone just like them, not just a bad match, not just the wrong person, but a mirror, a walking reflection of everything they once did to someone who loved them. And that reflection, it doesn't show up loud. It shows up sweet, charming, attractive, just like they once were when they were winning your trust. At first, it feels like destiny. They think they've finally met their match. The chemistry is off the charts. The connection feels deep, instant, magnetic. But what they don't realize yet is that they're not falling in love with something new. They're falling into a karmic loop, one designed to show them not who they love, but who they've been. And this time, they're not the one holding power. Remember how they once made you feel unsure, like you were never enough. No matter how much you gave, now they find themselves chasing texts that never come, waiting for calls that get ignored, posting things just to be seen and still getting silence. They once played hot and cold with you. Now they're dating someone who burns them with silence, then floods them with affection, then pulls away again and calls them too emotional. They used to turn your vulnerability into a joke. Now they open up and get mocked in return. They once had your loyalty, and they walked away. Now they beg for commitment from someone who keeps one foot in and the other out. At first, they rationalize it. They say, "This person just has issues. They're complicated. They're misunderstood." But slowly, deep down, a horrifying thought starts to rise. This is what I did to someone. They don't say it out loud. They may never admit it. But the thought haunts them in quiet moments. It shows up in the pause before they fall asleep, in the silence after yet another failed attempt to connect. Because the pain they're feeling now, it's not random. It's not just bad luck. It's pattern recognition. And it's karmic justice at its most poetic form. Marcus Aurelius said, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." But the universe, it doesn't seek revenge. It seeks restoration. And it restores balance, not by hurting someone back, but by giving them a lived experience of the pain they once caused through someone they can't control, can't fix, can't predict. This isn't about punishment. It's about perspective. Because no lesson is remembered more deeply than the one that is felt. They used to laugh at how much you cared. Now they're crying over someone who couldn't care less. They used to belittle your needs. Now they're being called too much by someone who withholds affection. They used to walk away like they were untouchable. Now they're begging someone to stay, to respond, to try. And that someone simply shrugs. And that's when it hits them. Not all at once, but gradually, painfully, undeniably. They're not just being hurt. They're being reflected, and the mirror doesn't lie. Let them meet their match. Let them feel the confusion, the powerlessness, the heartache of being seen, used, and dismissed, just like they once did to you. But this time, there's no one left to blame, no one to gaslight, no one to twist the narrative for, because the person on the other side of this pain isn't some monster, it's them, in a different body, with the same behavior. That's not revenge, that's return. Karma doesn't scream, doesn't attack, doesn't destroy. It reflects. So when they ask, "Why is this happening to me?" the answer is simple. You're not being punished. You're being shown. You don't need to fight people who are already fighting themselves. Karma doesn't need your help. It doesn't need you to clap back. It doesn't need you to prove your side of the story, or to beg the world to see your worth. It only needs one thing from you: your silence, your composure, your refusal to sink to their level, because while they're still tangled in lies, pride, and manipulation, you've already stepped into something far more powerful: clarity. You see, karma isn't just about what happens to them. It's also about what happens to you. When you finally let go, you stop needing closure, because peace becomes your closure. You stop needing justice, because time becomes your witness. And you stop needing them to feel what they did to you, because life already knows how to teach the lesson. Your job isn't to punish. Your job is to rise, to become so grounded, so stable, so inwardly strong, that no one can shake your peace again, not even the ghost of the person who hurt you. That is the Stoic way. We don't curse our enemies. We don't chase validation. We simply walk forward quietly, powerfully, with the kind of discipline that karma deeply respects. So, if you're watching this, and someone's hurt you, someone who never apologized, someone who pretended they did nothing wrong, someone who moved on like you didn't matter, let them. Because while they may look free, they are quietly haunted by the one thing they can't silence: the truth. And trust this, people who lie to others sleep fine, but people who lie to themselves, they don't sleep at all. If this message spoke to you, don't waste your energy chasing the past. Comment below with the one line that hit you hardest. Let others know they're not alone. And if you're walking this path of silence and inner strength, subscribe to Think Stoic 101. We don't just talk about healing. We train the mind to lead, not react. We build clarity. We build discipline. We build unshakable peace. Let karma do what karma does. And you keep becoming someone they'll never have access to again. That's not revenge. That's evolution. And the world watches in silence, because growth like that makes noise without a sound.